Week 8, college football season. Paul Finebaum, star of SEC Nation, SEC Network, and ESPN. I'm going to start off with a bone and a beef to pick. You SEC Nation folks have the easiest job in the history of television network. Okay, what time are you done?
Well, I want to just kind of take you inside. Yes, normally we're done at 11:59, 55, and we go right to the noon game. But yesterday, as we got in the car to go to the airport, so I could catch a flight, so I could get home in time to watch the kick for the Tennessee-Alabama game, I complained to our producers that we had to go to 12:03 because there wasn't an SEC game, and we had a command. So I was pretty ticked off that we had to work to 12:03 p.m.
You know what? You better get overtime pay for that. And not only that, if I'm not mistaken, Tebow's got a private jet. Jordan Rodgers has a private jet.
Here's a funny thing, inside baseball. So the rest of us schlubs are trying to get from Tuscaloosa to Birmingham to catch a flight that's very narrow. You've done this before. And we have to go through T. So we are working our way through game traffic while Tebow and Rodgers have a police escort to the private airport. Rodgers' game starts at 7:30. Tebow's, I don't know when his game starts.
And then the SEC people, you guys are in more advertisements. I see Marty's face everywhere.
Yeah, no, it's you got to come on down south, Matt, and try to make a few bucks.
You guys are like
Well, the SEC does own college football, doesn't it?
That's true.
Or it did. I can't remember when that was.
It's true. So that's a good place to jump off because I love everyone you guys work with. It's a fun show, even though half of you have private jets, and I'm schlubbing it till 3 a.m. in beautiful Bristol, America. But having said that, we love our jobs because it's college football. And I said it on Sunday Bloody Sunday where I was like, you know what? I really want to get into Alabama and Tennessee because Alabama it's Alabama. They were down 13 at the half. They outscored Tennessee 27-0 in the second half. They put their foot on Tennessee's throat. They ended up covering, and that's just who Alabama is this year.
It is, and when Saban came by our show early in the morning, Matt, he talked about the craziness of this team, and but he seems to really have been challenged by it, and I think once we move past the second or third game of the season, Nick Saban has taught a master class in why he's the best coach of all time, and why I think this is one of the most incredible seasons of his coaching career. And right now, there are not many more obstacles until Atlanta, and then it's a winner. It's a go for broke against Georgia and see if you can get back to the playoffs. And he has to get the credit. There were a lot of mistakes made on the quarterback side in terms of what to do and when to do it and how to do it with Tommy Rees. But since then, it's a tough team to watch at times. But tell me they're not one of the best teams in the country. And I'm not talking about the 2 or 3 best, but
sure.
The next group that's snapping. And one thing that I'll offer, I think had Tommy Rees not been so stubborn about trying to get his guy in, they could have given Jalen Milroe confidence earlier, and I think they probably would have beaten Texas.
Yeah, it's a great point because look, everybody knows in the portal games, if you bring in the offensive coordinator from Notre Dame and he had a guy that he thought was successful, Tyler Buckner, with him at Notre Dame, then you're going to give that a shot, just even give your team a shot in the arm. But neither here nor there, that's not going to happen. And Buckner's probably never going to see the field again at Alabama. But you said something interesting that I wholeheartedly agree with you. Nick Saban, and I hang out with a coach who I believe is still in his prime, and Dan Mullen, who I believe is going to coach again because I think he's that good of a coach. And I spend more time with him during the football season than I do my own wife. So I'm really starting to get intimate knowledge of how these men work and how their minds work. And I've never thought this until I saw it yesterday. I heard Saban at his postgame press conference, and you saying it there. I firmly believe the sickness that is how these head coaches are wired, that Nick Saban loves the challenge of this football team. Well, why is that, Matt? Because Years past, Paul, they roll out a top 10 quarterback, 5 top 10 receivers, throw the ball down the field and beat the hell out of every team 42-10. This year, Nick Saban has had to coach more in game potentially than he has in the past 5 or 6 years, because you just watch the cutaways on the sidelines. And there's something about it that I think this team is reinvigorating him because he's having to find a new way to coach.
Well, Matt, I heard in the offseason that they had too much talent last year before anybody goes crazy. I mean, they had the best offensive and defensive player, and sometimes the rest of the players adapt and maybe don't mature or go to the nth degree. But not only has he had the 4 quarterbacks that we talk about all the time, and the 2 that will be featured in the Sunday night game, but he had 2 Heisman Trophy winners at running back in Ingram and obviously Henry. The receivers, and his best receiver is a guy that left Georgia 2 years ago. And so they've had to make do. They don't have that all-pro wide receiver like they used to. And I think deep down, you have to get bored when you're at that level. And the pressure is not the pressure you put is that what you put on yourself, and you're fighting your own legacy. And this season still has some turns, but it's been a remarkable thing to overcome, because Alabama has been at the precipice now against Ole Miss, against Texas A&M, against Tennessee, and
Arkansas.
Really, the biggest game of the season it has yet to be played yet, and that's the next one against LSU.
Right, and they had to fight to get a win against a bad Arkansas team. And look, hey,
bad doesn't describe Arkansas.
No, it doesn't. I want to segue to them in a minute. But look, what does any coach tell you? Well, we got to learn how to win. You can't say anything but that for Alabama. We know they've got LSU in 2 weeks. That's going to be the game of the year in the SEC. And LSU is not going to have any problem scoring points. It's whether or not they can play defense. So we've got plenty of time to preview that one. But again, all Alabama's doing this year, we were sitting in studio and I looked at Joey and Mullen. I'm like, does anyone not believe Alabama's not coming back and winning this game? And we just kind of sat there and laughed because we knew it was inevitable. And Alabama, once again, gets the win at home. I do want to segue to Mississippi State, Arkansas, because the Big Ten West was strong in this game. 7-3 was the final. That kind of final is reserved for Minnesota and Iowa. But this was the SEC West, not the Big Ten West. 7-3 Mississippi State gets the win. And Paul, I'm going to ask this without sounding disrespectful. How much trouble is Sam Pittman in?
He has to be in a lot of trouble. And Matt, I say that reluctantly. If you know Sam Pittman, you genuinely love this guy.
Absolutely.
Some coaches you respect. I mean, he's the guy you want next door. He would do anything for you. But this is his 4th season. He had the transition year. He had the really good year. Last year was a mess. This year is a disaster. And Hunter Yurchek went out on a limb. He's the athletic director, very respected. Went out on a limb last week and said, "Okay, we're home now. We've been on the road for however many weeks." And that was as much a win as I've ever seen a program. I mean, you lose to the program that essentially has an interim coach that comes in for Mike Leach, that has done nothing, with a backup quarterback who transferred from Vanderbilt. And that's all you can do with a quarterback as talented, and that you have to start to blame that on coaching. So yeah, I mean, I know I've given you a long answer because it upsets me to answer it, but I'm going to. It's hard to imagine what Sam Pittman has left to argue in relation to his future.
Yeah, he was one of those feel-good coaching stories, and everyone has them. The coach that comes home, he wasn't a sexy name, he wasn't a big name. He was just full of substance, offensive line guy. You're thinking, all right, let's bring Pittman back. And the fans loved it at the time. So like someone who understands Arkansas football. And at first it was like, hey, great. This is working. I mean, anything after Chad Morris was going to work. And now you're right. And I think Arkansas is one of those jobs because I find that the resources there, that if you had someone that could make that thing pop, it would. But at the end of the day, I just 7-3, a combined 10 points in an SEC game. That's something I never thought I would see. That was not
Arkansas's a job. You win 8 games. Fans are saying, "Good. We any chance we could ever win 9." I mean, that's the program. It's not your normal SEC power, and you lose that game on the road and you take flack. You lose that game at home and you lose the fan base. And I think he has lost the fan base.
I would agree. And it's a shame because, again, we both think Sam Pittman's great. He's a good college football guy. Game of the day, Penn State, Ohio State. Ohio State, they don't really win many beauty contests, but they do just enough to get the win. And all year, I was told how this was the year for James Franklin and Penn State. They looked so horrible offensively. I don't want to hear anything about Penn State and James Franklin again until he can prove he can win a ranked game on the road in a game where he allegedly had just as much talent as the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I mean, he has one more shot, and if anyone, raise your hand, and I don't see any. If you believe he's going to beat Michigan at home, and I mean, he's in that gray area where he's got a good program, 10-win program at Penn State. Is it enough? And I don't think many Penn State fans today really believe it is. Not suggesting anything beyond that, because it's what do you do? We just got through talking about a guy that can't win 7. Now we're talking about a guy that can't win 11. But that's really where that program is.
Hey, he wins 10 a year. I mean, they're going to be 10-2. They're not going to beat Michigan. There's not even going to be close. Here's where you have to start looking at big picture landscape college football. I was thinking about this yesterday because the Big Ten West it's laughable. It's just not good football. Now, those guys out there will say, well, we play defense and special teams. Okay, fine, but it's not great football. I love you guys. I love the Wisconsins. I love the Iowas. I love Nebraska. Great. It's just not good football. Here's the problem with a program like Penn State, James Franklin. USC's coming, even though they had another embarrassing loss to Utah. UCLA's coming. Oregon's coming. Washington narrowly escaped Arizona State, but they're coming. And so now, if you're one of these Big Ten programs outside of Ohio State, Michigan, 0.5 Penn State, how is this job getting any easier for James Franklin with those 4 teams coming to the conference with no divisions?
No, it's going to be the luck of the schedule too in the Big Ten of what you get and where you have to go. And I don't know. I mean, he just doesn't inspire much to me. Seems like he's always belly aching, always making excuses. And you know, I don't know I really don't know what the future looks like. He's passed on some other jobs. They passed on him. I think Penn State's stuck with the guy.
Am I crazy? Not in general, but crazy for wanting to say and believing that Michigan's the number 1 team in the country?
Yeah, I mean, you certainly can make that argument. I'm kind of stuck on Georgia because I don't think they've really done anything to lose that, and I think this could, we'll get into the whole committee thing here in about 2 weeks. Let them make the choice because it won't be ours any longer. But I think I think it's a fair argument. I mean, whether you like them or not, and I don't know many people that do, and they're fewer by the day. They are the most impressive team in the country this year.
Yeah, and it's not. Look, I'm not taking anything away from Georgia. They've won 24 in a row. Like their resume speaks for themselves, back-to-back national championships. But if I'm doing it right here, right now, Sunday, October 22nd, based on what I've seen, I'd be hard pressed not to favor Michigan in any game on a neutral site.
And you have to start thinking, with the metrics of this committee, unless they use sign stealing as a deterrent, they very well may make Michigan number 1. By the way, it doesn't matter considering. Last year, Tennessee was the number 1 team going in, and the first year was Mississippi State. The first poll is about as irrelevant as the first-round leader at Augusta.
That's exactly right. Like you look at it and you're like, oh, hey, that's a good story. And then Friday morning they tee off and you're like, that guy's no longer in the lead. Great golf. Paul, I'm proud of you. Great golf analogy. Okay, so I want to end with this one because it was a day. Look, top 5, Oklahoma stared at defeat. They got out of it. Texas stared at defeat. They got out of it. Washington stared at defeat. They got out of it. Florida State got a tough game from Duke. They got out of it. North Carolina did not get out of it. And now The ACC's playoff hopes rest on Florida State. I was watching that game last night. We love Mac Brown. They've got a ton of talent. But I was watching the TV and I said, that's last year's North Carolina, where they're letting a team that's in a game that shouldn't be in their game. And last night they got.
I don't. I was talking to her. I was on the air the other day with Jeff Saturday, and he was trying to. He said, you know, we were doing our top four, man. He said, "Hey, what about North Carolina?" And I said, "What about North Carolina?" I mean, I said, and they showed some clips from whatever year Jeff played, and they were 7-0. I said, "What happened the next week?" And he said, "Well, never mind." That is North Carolina, and sadly, it's really been the embodiment of Mac Brown at North Carolina. He's done a phenomenal job, but he just always has that game, and that's really too bad, because that program probably deserved better, but it's not like you can begrudge Tony Elliott's team. I thought that was the story of the day in many respects, Matt, as I know you probably pointed out many times. And ultimately, that league is struggling, and fortunately for North Carolina, they lost that game because we aren't focusing on what a blithering idiot Dabo Swinney is for saying what he did earlier in the week about, hey, maybe I need to lose a couple of games and my fan base will understand, you know, what it's like. Well, he now has lost a couple of games. How about 3, Dabo?
3 for 3 consecutive years. It's not hyperbole, Paul, to say that thing, it's not done, but it's not going back to what it was.
No, it's you know, I mean, in terms of I made some comment a couple of weeks ago about Dabo's dynasty is done. It was more for alliteration. His dynasty is over. It has been over for a while, and the concern now is, can he ever get it back to an elite level? And I think there has to be some doubts, and there are a lot of reasons for it, and most of them are when Dabo Swinney looks in the mirror at night.
His failure to adapt. And they had Miami on the ropes, on the road, Clemson, with a backup quarterback for Miami.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, now he's lost 2 overtime games. I'm sure he'll argue that when he speaks to the Greenville Touchdown Club Monday afternoon. You know, we were this close, but it doesn't matter. It's over, and you know, the rest of his schedule. I don't even care. I mean, I frankly, what do you care?
No. That thing's like, no, that's like moving on from Clemson as we are moving on. Hey, any thoughts on USC going down for a 4th straight time against Utah? Because in the offseason, I was told USC's got the most star power of any team in the country.
Well, they got the ESPN LeBron James treatment in the offseason. You know, those guys down the dial on ESPN. You know, Caleb. All I heard in August was Caleb Williams, Matt. I know you did, because you're on SportsCenter every day. And I was concerned maybe about 4 weeks ago. I said here with you, they look like a fraud. I thought, did I just stick my foot in my mouth? No. What we've seen the last 2 weeks has been building. And to look at Lincoln Riley after the game, you know, with that frat boy smirk. I mean, it's come on. I mean, your credibility has been shot too. I mean, you got a good program. You're a good coach. You're going to the Big Ten, and your problems remain the same.
Yeah, and when you go into the Big Ten, again, we had mentioned Oregon and Washington of the Pac-12, they're not going anywhere. They're coming with you. UCLA and Chip Kelly's a physical team. They're on the up. And then, oh, by the way, Ohio State and Michigan every year. It's a tall task for USC, who thought they were going to get back to the Pete Carroll days. And as we end our week 8 wrap-up, as we do here on the ESPN College Football YouTube channel, I was curious, Texas A&M got the win this week.
They did. Well, yeah, they're sitting there with 3 losses. They have road games at Ole Miss and LSU. They have South Carolina and somebody else within conference. I really believe in Mississippi State. That program right now, the standards have been lowered. If Jimbo Fisher finishes 7-5, I think fans will say, yeah, but very close. I think it's the other 2 games. It's the other games he has to worry about. If he loses one of those, and by the way, I don't know how he could lose to South Carolina after what I saw yesterday from Shane Beamer. Shane Beamer might want to try breaking his other foot this week for good.
I mean, we love Beamer. And I'll tell you this, I said this on Sunday Bloody Sunday, Missouri's going to get someone. That is a good football team that's a shootout away from LSU from being undefeated.
Well, you're right. And they get scheduled here for a second. Tennessee has to go to Missouri. And we probably don't have enough time to just insert Josh Heupel's name this week for Dan Lanning and have a conversation about fourth down decisions.
Oh, I promised myself I'm not going to go in on analytics again, but I think analytics are the dumbest thing in the history of ever. I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to go on a tangent. We've been on long enough.
Here's the thing. This goes for Heupel and for Gus Malzahn at the end of the Oklahoma game. If you're going for it on fourth down, and in Gus's case, he had to go for 2, come up with at least a legitimate play. I mean, don't go into the
double passes on the 5. Double passes on the 3-yard line aren't a good play call.
That could not have been high on the analytics list, Matt.
I don't know. Anyway, like this, we'll do a whole show on analytics because I want proof that the analytics aren't as good as the analytics say they are. Because every time I'm watching an analytics-driven decision, it doesn't work and the team ends up losing. But what do I know? Anyway, Paul, great stuff. Week 9 is upon us. The college football rankings 9 days away. I can't wait to scream at everyone for that. But until then, this is the ESPN College Football YouTube channel, The Matt Barrie Show, and our Week 8 recap.
Give me something I can feel. Light a cigarette just so I can breathe.